careful that you don't seek to apply every single point, because the parables generally have an overall teaching point, and many times people try to take it expositorily and try to dissect it verse by verse, word by word, and it is very difficult to do, because the significance of the parable is to bring a particular point. In 13, he opens, says, the same day went Jesus out of the house and sat by the seaside, and great multitudes were gathered together unto him, so that he went into a ship and sat. And the whole multitude stood on the shore. And he spake unto many things unto them in parables, saying, behold, the sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. And other fell unto good ground, and brought forth fruit, some an hundredfold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. He who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And of course, disciples had to ask the question, why speakest thou unto them in parables? And he answered and said to them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of God, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath. Therefore speak I to them in parables, because seeing they see not, hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Now, just tell somebody I'm an insider. I've got good ground. It is interesting when you begin to deal with the analysis of the parables, and it makes God's nearness, indeed and in fact, it speaks of God's nearness in the world event. And you cannot deny, or you cannot ignore the fact that if you're sitting here today, and if you're clothed in your right mind, and if God is operating in your life, then you have had revelatory experiences. I use the word revelatory experiences because none of us can cognitively bring Jesus into our space. Not cognitively. My relationship, I've told you before, my relationship with the Lord is not physical. He doesn't cross the line. It's not physical. It is not material. And we're working really hard now on a book that's dealing with the whole issue of materialism and capitalism as it relates to what we call gospel. I fell out with TBN years ago because I told them, if you can't preach it in Madagascar, if you can't preach it in Somalia, if it can't be preached in Darfur, if it's only fixed for America, then it's not gospel. They were arguing the other day about, I heard them talking about the capitalistic gospel. Well, there is no gospel that centers around money. My relationship with God is not material. If he blesses me financially, it's icing on the cake. But my relationship is not primarily and will never be primarily material. It is not physical, it's not material, and it's not intellectual. It doesn't matter how genius you are, it doesn't matter how smart you are, your intellectual capacity and your cognitive energy and your creativity, you cannot get to know him like that. If you notice, he is saying to his disciples when they ask him the question, why are you going and dealing with us in parables? And his answer is because membership has its privilege. And that is, I will give you the revelatory experience that only I can give, because nobody can cognitively grasp me unless I give you. So if you're in here and you believe God, and if you trust God, you have faith in God, then nobody can question the authenticity of your relationship with God, because if you have any kind of inkling towards God, he revealed that to you. I think somebody, we could go home on that. Amen. We could go, one of my friends said we could go in on that. I mean, because when we consider the fact that we have consciousness of God, and we seek to please God, and we work hard on being what he requires us to be, we work hard on discipleship, it must be because there is an awakening. And the awakening didn't come from you. It had to come from him. He had to do it. When we closed last week, I had some thought as to how it is and why it is that thank you so much, that in many instances we don't deliver as much to him as he delivers to us. But he opens this by simply saying that the sower goes out to sow. And he is sowing, he's throwing his seeds everywhere. He's not discriminating as to where his seeds go. He is simply throwing his seeds out everywhere, and he's not checking soils. See, one of our problems is we check soils. And we have a tendency to make judgments before we deliver our seeds. And it's an interesting concept, because oftentimes from the church's point of view, if you're sowing a seed, we generally say, to convince you to give into, say, the City of Refuge, or give to any particular church, we tell you, sow a seed because this is good ground. So what we're saying to you is discriminate before you sow. Make sure you know where you're sowing. Now, I'm going to stretch this a little bit and take it a little bit into the Old Testament. I'm going to take it to the Old Testament. Now, it's interesting that when the produce is God's produce, when God is doing the production, he does not necessarily argue as to where the seed is sown. All right, anybody, anything come to mind? All right, give some thought to the fact that God is going to produce a nation through Abraham. And in order to produce a nation through Abraham, he's got to have some ground to sow his seed. In this case, the ground, of course, is a woman, and he's sowing his seed into a woman. And the woman that God chose for him to sow his seed into is Sarah. But Sarah is barren. Not only is Sarah barren, Sarah is barren and old. And not only is Sarah barren and old, Abraham is old too. So notice now that if maybe I'm a little dyslexic or something, well, maybe I think further than the rest, but I don't know, or less than the rest. I'm trying to keep these teeth in, so you all just be real careful. It's critical to understand now that the seed that Abraham was sowing wasn't that potent. And where he was sowing it was barren. And both of them were old. So when it comes to the productivity that God intends, what he's saying to you and I is just bring what you have. If you bring what you have and I'm the one doing the production, then it doesn't matter what you bring to me because I can produce out of nothing. You see, the significant thing is to have the faith to bring what you have and throw it out wherever you got to throw it out and let God take it, catch it, put it in the right place and bring you some production. So the sower is never at fault. The sower is never at fault. It's always the ground and what's going on around that particular ground. You see, many times we're discriminating as to who and what we will invest in. But the investor invests out of his heart and let God take the rest of it. Because many times your goodness just shows the evil in others. And we oftentimes try to keep our goodness to put it in good places. But you don't always know good places. And that's why there's another scripture that says you're good to people who aren't good to you, but you end up heaping coals of fire upon their head. Your goodness either releases somebody or judges somebody. You know, a friend of mine called me, a young man called me this week, and he was witnessing to somebody constantly and constantly and constantly, and the person would not hear. And then for the last 3 days, the 3 days of the person's life, which he didn't know, the person called him, but he didn't answer the phone. So now he is in a place of remorse because he's saying now to me, should I have answered the phone? And I should as well, you should or you shouldn't, but you didn't know he was going to die, and you didn't take his life, and you did everything that you could have done because you sowed into his life, but he didn't respond in any way. I said, think about it. When you sow and there is no response, when the Lord sent you from door to door, and somebody decides they're not going to respond, he says, well, you shake the dust off your feet. In other words, you have done your part. You see, when you do your part, you leave it to God. I wish I could talk to somebody who likes to live in guilt, because I'm dealing with a person who likes to live in guilt. Get out of the guilt stage. Get away from guilt. God does not intend for you to live in guilt, and he does not intend for the church to promote guilt. What he intends for the church to do is to release you to be who you are, so that you can sow out of what God has given you and let the seed fall where it may. And I'm not responsible once I sow. If you won't pick it up and go with it, I gave it. I threw it out. I sacrificed. I gave my life so that you might have a better life. And if you choose not to have it, it ain't on me. Give somebody a high five. Say, let go of all that guilt. Touch somebody else. Say, quit living in regret. Get over the guilt and quit living in regret, because you can't change what's behind you. You can only look forward to what's in front of you and fix that based on what you have been through. You throw it out. The sower's never at fault. I feel like shouting on that. I sowed into your life. I came into your life to make your life better. If you misunderstand it, that's on you. If you don't want to do anything with it, that's on you. If you want to complain about it after I've done it, that's still on you. I gave it out of what God gave me, and I sowed it, and it all depends on what ground it fall on. And it ain't my fault if you're not good ground. I sowed it anyway. And somebody called me an idiot. And somebody called me a flunky. And somebody called me a whole lot of names. But I did what God told me to do because I wasn't looking for no response. I was just sowing because he told me to sow. Don't live in regret once you've done what you ought to do. Because the first question we ask ourselves often is, could I have done more? Could I have done more? You know, one of the most painful things, I don't know, is when friends of mine or somebody close to me commits suicide. And you ask the question, I remember when you know, my memory's going like, you know, I'm telling you, I got to find somebody quickly. my short-term memory ain't there. My long-term memory is there. Can't got no teeth in my mouth. I got, you know, I'm deteriorating fast. You know what Bishop Jakes told me? He said, Jones, you better hurry up and get married. I said, why? He said, listen, Jones, so she can at least say it wasn't always this way. Don't fall. Oh, God. I got to be here. I need some Fix-A-Den or something. These things are coming out. Anywho, I shouldn't have started that. You know, that's a downhill journey. And oftentimes you ask yourself, why didn't they talk to you? And it seems as if we take on ourselves a sense of responsibility for ourselves and others that we really don't have. Because no matter how big a heart you have, your resources don't always measure to your heart. And I'm not just speaking about financial resources. I'm talking about psychological and emotional and spiritual resources that you have to pull out of. There is a cistern, or there is a reservoir that you have to pull out of for your own maintenance. Can I talk to you about that for a minute? See, many times there's a reservoir that you have to reach for your own maintenance, because life depletes and you have to refill. You see, that's why you have to replenish. You just can't keep taking and not replenishing. I found that out these last 2 years with all the struggles I've had physically and even psychologically, that you have to replenish. You can't give and give and give and give and don't stop to replenish, because you're eating out of the same reservoir, and the people around you are eating out of your reservoir. Because when some people go low, they fill up out of you. I wish I could talk to you. Some people go low, they looking for you. They looking for you to restore them. They don't want to be restored independent because they don't have the connection that you had. See, some people live off of other people's anointing. Because they haven't gained any anointing of their own. So they have to come through you as a conduit to them. And that's why they get real disappointed when you don't show up. And then they start hating you. But it ain't on me, honey. It's on you and God. Because once it's sowed, you got to pick it up. Can't nobody else grow your garden. You got to grow your own garden. Can't nobody else produce for you. You got to produce for yourself. And so once God opens the door, don't look for somebody else to fill the space. Look for God to fill it. This This way you don't live in bitterness, live in hatred, live blaming others, live blaming people. No, you take it on your own. If God is for me, who can be against me? And who can stop the blessings from flowing my way? Ooh, I feel like dancing on that one. It is critical. The sower. You can't blame the sower. Put it out there. And many times we live in guilt as if we're in control. After you've done what God has called you to do. And see, God puts burdens on people. And that burden can be somebody else. But the burden isn't always there because there's going to be a deliverance. The burden can be there because there's going to be a judgment. Oh, I hate to put it like that, but the truth is the truth. Because he put a burden on the prophets many times to speak words of judgment. See, once the burden comes on you, that burden for somebody comes from God. And it's God saying through you to that person that I have been kind to you. Let me put it another way. You know, it's the same effort you put into a relationship that works that you put into one that didn't. The reason one of those 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 relationships didn't work, I don't know how many you've had, didn't work, wasn't because you didn't put the effort. You put the same effort in the man that mistreated you, the woman that mistreated you, that you did with the one that enjoyed and loved you. You put the same effort in. It wasn't you, you sowed it. The soil just couldn't receive it, because the soil didn't have the capacity to deal with the seed you sowed. And it's really interesting when the seed you sowed, somebody else picks it up that don't deserve to have it, but enjoyed it. Every time the birds came and picked up the seed, they enjoyed it. They used it to the utmost. Sometimes you're sowing a seed over here and somebody else is enjoying your blessing that you sowed for over here. You had your mind over here, but God had somebody else receiving what you put out. And if I put it out and one person gets it, then I can give God the praise if nobody else gets it. Because if one person comes out all right, it's worth what I went through. Oh, I feel like dancing. It's a critical thing because the sower is not to blame. The seed is not to blame. It's the ground. It's the same sun shining, same rain falling, but it's the ground. The pliability of the human being, or the hardness of the human being. Now, notice now, the first soil, and if I had the time, I would show you where Matthew 13 and Matthew 14 meet. Now, when he sowed in verse 4, some seeds fell by the wayside. And the wayside is stony ground. So the seed couldn't even penetrate the ground. Now, can you imagine having, and somewhere I read, don't cast your pearls before swine. Because at a certain point, and it's a difficult point, and that is the point to realize that this isn't working. It's a very difficult point. And I don't want to raise, I have to raise the issue of hope and expectation. Because hope is a powerful tool to keep you coming back. Expectation. It's a powerful tool. In fact, hope is the workhorse of faith. Hope is actually the mule of faith. Faith gets all the credit, but hope is the underlining workhorse. Faith might be white collar, but hope is blue collar. Because hope will keep you coming back. And the greater your capacity for expectation is, the greater your vulnerability for abuse. Somebody tweet that real quick. The greater your capacity for expectation is, the greater your vulnerability for abuse. Because hope keeps you coming back to a situation that's stony ground, no wayside ground. Because the wayside ground is so hard that there is no penetration. So for those who are arguing, have I done enough? You can't do enough. Because no matter how many seeds you put on that ground, it ain't gonna open up. I'm talking to somebody who's been there. I'm talking to somebody who was there. I'm talking to somebody who's going there, and somebody who is there right now. And that is, there has to become a level of discernment to know when to bail out. And I want to just put it like this, because, you know, Christians, we have a way of saying things so that we don't take responsibility for it. You know, the Lord has not yet lifted the burden. So there's no cognitive involvement. There's no personal, subjective involvement, interpretation. It's the Lord. We just said the Lord, you know. You know, the thing ain't working. You know it ain't working. Now, come on now. In fact, it's steady getting worse, because there is a ground that will not open. Now, here is the problem with that ground, is that it has been walked on so long. I don't know if you've been in the country, but if you go in the country, you got to find the path. And the path has no grass now, because it's been walked on for so long that the ground has now become hardened in the place where people have walked on. So what I'm suggesting is that sometimes people have been walked on so much until they've come to the place where nothing can penetrate them anymore. Sometimes you're dealing with people who are so hardened that there's nothing you can do to penetrate them anymore. And so because the seed is just sitting there and cannot get into the ground, here comes the birds and take it away. So that means, to him that hath, more shall be given. To him that hath not, the little he has shall be taken away. That's what the parable is talking about. And that is that you're so hard you can't receive. And because you can't receive, something else comes and takes it away. Something that it didn't belong to. He didn't sow it for the birds. He sowed it for you. And you let the birds come and get it because you couldn't be penetrated, because you're living in the past of all your bad experiences, and you heat them up until now you're so hard. Give somebody a high five and say, I'm glad I loosened up. Too hard to forgive, too hard to get over stuff, too hard to release stuff, too hard to let some stuff go, too hard to let some people go, just too hard. So now you live in skepticism, you're cynical, you're untrusting, you're mean and hateful. Because you couldn't release some things. There's a button on every computer that says delete. They tell me it still stays on the hard drive, but anyway, I hit delete. And I don't see it no more. Wherever it is, I don't see it anymore. You see, the secret of life is to get to the place where you might not forget the incident, but it don't hurt you no more. I'm not reacting behind the negative anymore. I'm not reacting behind what you've done to me years ago. And I see you coming and it's just like yesterday. The devil is a liar. The devil is a sure enough liar. I'm not going to have my life full of a whole lot of negative baggage. No, if I have some baggage, it's going to be a little bit like this. I ain't going to be pulling it in no 18-wheeler. Amen. I clean out my garage. My garage has room for my cars. Amen. You got to clean your garage out. You got to clean your closet out. Every now and then you got to clean your refrigerator out every 2 or 3 days. You can't have a whole lot of stuff accumulating. Even in a refrigerator that's 32 degrees, it'll still stink. Can I preach to you just a minute? You have gotten real cold over keeping stuff you need to throw away. Should I say that again? You have gotten real cold because you're holding on to some stuff you need to throw away. And if you throw some of that junk away, you can warm up. Oh, it's time to warm up. Give somebody a high five. Say, folk got me cold, but I'm getting ready to throw some folk away so I can warm up. I gotta warm up. I can't keep looking at folk funny and mad with everybody that comes. God might send somebody in my life and I need to be warm. I've been cold long enough trying to keep some junk in my fridge. Don't blame the sower. Don't blame the sower. I feel it in my spirit. I'm talking to somebody in here that's on the edge. You've been good. Don't stop being good. Don't stop sowing. Don't stop being positive. Keep on sowing. It's going to fall on some good ground. Somebody going to pick it up. Amen. You've been walked on for so long that we can't penetrate. And we're not talking about being old either. We're talking about some hard young folk. About some people who just can't get through. You can't get through to them. I had a little girl, I've told you this before, I hope I did, years ago when I was teaching when I was in Longview, Texas, which is over 25 years next year. And the social worker said the child, she was 8 years old, the child was like an onion. I said, what in the world do you mean, an onion? Because, you know, immediately you think about odor when you talk about onion, but that's not what she meant. She said she's peeling. Take off the first layer. She's looking for a core. Because in order to turn somebody around, you gotta hook onto something. And at 8 years old, she couldn't find a core because she kept peeling and peeling and peeling and peeling, but there was nothing in her that she could reach for to bring her around, and she's 8 years old. Compound that with years of abuse, and compound that with years of people walking on you, compound that with being the path that people walk on. There are certain countries in the world that have been invaded more times than others because they sit in strategic places. Afghanistan is one. If you look through the Middle East, there's through the passage from Europe through to Africa. So you're coming straight down through Israel. You're coming straight down through the Middle East, Lebanon, all those. So the belligerence of those people and the continual fighting that goes on there is because they've been conquered many, 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 many times by various nations. Alexander the Great, you go back to Julius Caesar, you go Kubla Khan, they all come through there. And many times you have been that place where everybody comes through. Everybody in your family comes through. All the men and women around you come through. People you don't even know come through. People invite people to come through. Amen. So now, if you don't know how to release that stuff, you see, I don't want to be so brash. Maybe Tinny would have been brash like this. But one of the greatest things about living is not just imbibing. One of the greatest things, if you don't release physically, you can have intestinal strangulation in 3 days. How do you spell relief? I think the point is made. It is a critical thing to understand letting things go and purging and softening up. The Old Testament talks about the fallow ground. Because there has to be a plowing into the fallow ground, because you can get so hard until nothing can come in. And what was intended for you, somebody else leaves with it. Your blessing is now, and here's what's wonderful. Here's the metaphor. Your blessing is now flying away. It was sitting on top of you, but now it's flying away because the bird got it. My blessing is flying away because I have become so hard, I can't be penetrated. Ooh, I have become so skeptical that I don't even know a blessing when I see it. I'm so blind. All right, now, the fowls came and devoured them. That's verse 4, which means it ain't coming back. It's gone. There is no other opportunity for the hard. Then some fell among stony places where they had not much earth. And forthwith they sprang up because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. Now, I told you I could go to 14 and show you every single one of these parables. The first parable is indicative. That's the wayside ground in chapter 14 is indicative of John losing his head. Total hardness in Herod. Now, let me just, since I'm on that, you know this young man, Paris, what's it, Herndon? The fellow who stands up for Trump. Paris, what is his name? Harden? Bernard? Oh yes, Paris Bernard. See, I can't even get that. Now, Leonard. Is it L? Dinard. D. Okay. I got it now. Notice now, the other night, he had a serious fight on CNN with an intelligence officer. Today, he's blackballed. Because he took on the intelligence ex-CIA in your business kind of a guy. All of a sudden, here comes a story about him having sexually abused somebody. Story never came out until he took on a greater power. When we, as preachers, teachers, pastors, why a whole lot of folk are so quiet about Trump? Because we sit around talking about speak truth to power. But if you speak truth to power, be prepared to lose your head. John the Baptist spoke truth to power and lost his head. I ain't figured out the dance yet, because I don't know what kind of dance she could have danced that he want to give up half his kingdom. I got to figure that dance out. I got to meditate on that dance. That has to call for a poll or something. Can't be no less dance than that. To give up half his kingdom. And what kind of hatred did his wife have for John the Baptist that she won his head over half a kingdom? You speak truth to power, you got to be prepared to lose your head. And not your physical head today, but your reputation. If you got something in your closet, you got to be prepared for it to come out. Because if you speak to these folk today, they coming after you. Oh, you got to be ready for it. Secret has become private, and private is everywhere. Ain't no secrets no more. Ain't nothing private no more. It's everywhere. Your business is everywhere. So you're going to speak truth to power, you better be ready to deal with whatever they're going to throw your way. Because everybody got a skeleton somewhere. I know you're holy. But you got something you don't want everybody to know. Amen. Everybody. Everybody. That was the first ground. The first ground. The stony ground, and that's because they had no compunction for John the Baptist. They just took him out. The stony ground is a place where you have some earth, but you don't have enough earth to take root. When you look at stony ground, you think oftentimes of an emotional response, but not a serious commitment. The ground is stony, but I have a little earth. So even though I have a lot of rough edges, I still have a little goodness in me, but I don't have enough goodness to take root. See, here many times is where the seed is sown, and even though it falls among a lot of issues, you still believe that root is going to take place. Now, this aspect of the parable is seen, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief, and it's now seen better in Peter, where Peter now comes out, begins to walk on the water, and I think that's in chapter 14 too, where he comes out and he begins to walk on the water, and then suddenly he can't go any further because he starts looking around. Oh yeah, here it is in verse 22 of chapter 14. And he is walking on the water, and it's the same thing in verse 16 too. And that is, the disciples didn't want to feed the 5,000. They had some food. They wanted the food for themselves, and they didn't want to feed the 5,000. And so the first parable, the first soil, is the John the Baptist episode. The second soil is the second and third episodes in chapter 14. And because you have some food and you have begun to walk, why are you doubting? You see, the thing that is significant about the soil, again, in the second section of that sowing, is that oftentimes you're looking at your obstacles and you're not looking at the Christ. That's what I prayed about this morning, because many times we look at our obstacles once we've begun. See, the first soil didn't even start. The second soil begins, but doesn't have the root, because there's not enough soil. And many times in situations where there's not enough soil, people bring soil in. That was my prayer. My prayer was, Lord, give me enough soil so that the seed can catch root. Lord, I believe, help thou my unbelief. I don't want to have more unbelief than belief. So I need you to eliminate my unbelief when I'm dealing with rocky situations. Because when the rocks are all around me, I'd want to focus on who I am and not focus on what they are. See, many times we lose our way because we focus on other people's negativity instead of the positivity that we have in us. Oh, God, send me more soil. Stop me from looking around. Peter is out of the boat. And the wonderful thing about Peter is he's out of the boat. See, a whole lot of folk are clinging to the boat and won't take the risk. That's another conversation. It's when you won't take the risk. Peter took the risk. But instead of looking at Jesus, and he actually walked on his word. We say Peter walked on water. I say he walked on his word. He said, if it be thou, bid me to come. And he said, come. And he stepped out on his word, come. And when you step out on his word, don't look around. You see the logic. The logic is, if he were walking on water, he conquered the water. He's walking on the word, but he quit believing. Said, why did you doubt? Isn't that what he said? If he's walking on the water, he's conquered the water. Ain't no sense in him being scared of what he's walking on. He's walking on the word, and the word is taking him over the water. But instead of staying with the word, he's looking at the water. Stay with the word. Quit looking at the problem. Stay with the word. Quit accessing the problem. Deal with the word. If the word says it's already done, it's settled in heaven, keep on walking. Give somebody a high five and say, stay with the word. Not with their promises. Stay with the word. Not with their threats. Stay with the word. Not with what's coming up against you. Stay with the word. Not how evil folk are. Fret not thyself because of evildoer. You're going to be here when the storm has passed over. Stay with the word. Stay with the word. I have seen folk. Listen, pastoring, it can be hurtful at times, but it's a blessing at times. I have seen folk come in here over 25 years, and I've seen them suffer, struggle up and down, but they stayed with the word. And when they stayed with the word, now they got a testimony. And this is why I'm telling you all, write some books. I got the publishers. I got the folk all over this country who can help you to get it out. Why? Because you stayed with the word. And you need to tell somebody what staying with the word does for you. It still works. Quit looking around at what other folk have. David said, my foot almost slipped. Checking out the evildoer. You ain't had no business looking at the evildoer. What you watching the evildoer for? Look at him. He's selling dope and driving a Mercedes, and I'm praising God and gotta catch the bus. What you looking at him for? Stay with the word. What the word says, if you delight yourself in the Lord, he will give you the desires of your heart. Stay with the word. Looking at the evildoer for. You know things are bad when you got heaven, you got to fill with the Holy Spirit, and you sitting over here being envious of the evildoer. I ain't envious. I don't care what the evildoer's got. I ain't envious of the evildoer when I got the Holy Spirit. I got the word of God. Heaven is my home. Ain't nobody taking nothing with him. I have to finish the rest of it the next time. The revelatory experience that this brings is not for everybody.